1, yeah!
Hey gang, welcome to this week's episode of the INSIDEWAG Nutrition Podcast. This week, me and Chris are going to talk about healthy habits. Habits that help you thrive today and long into the future. And isn't that what this is all about anyways? Health, longevity, living your best life? We think so. So if you're down with that, stay tuned. This is a really good episode and you're going to like it. If you want to sign up with us, you can go to workingagainstgravity.com/join and use the code INSIDEWAG at checkout to get $50 off your first month of coaching with us here at Working Against Gravity. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. You know what? Chris. Hey, Chris, you know what?
Hey, what?
Today, we're going to talk about lifestyle factors and how they contribute to success in the short term and the long term.
I've heard about this. Yeah.
It's a hot topic.
Yeah.
How can you be healthier right now and also in the long term? Positive habits, positive routines, things to consider, things to think about. That is the topic of today's show, gang. And me and Chris did some prep for this show, as we do with most of our shows. But Chris had a interesting anecdote. He had a pretty interesting discussion with a person that he works with this past week, and it's really pretty spot on with this topic. So I'm gonna let Chris take it away and kind of talk a little bit about that and how it came up and how that conversation went.
Sure. Yeah. So I've had a client, a male, who has been working with me for about the past 2 months, and his last few check-ins kind of got increasingly frustrating. His tone, his demeanor in terms of what he had to offer me, outside of just being like, I'm frustrated. I don't really have much motivation to keep this going.
He was frustrated.
He was frustrated.
Got it, yeah.
And frustrated with the sense of his perception of his progress and feeling like this was all for none kind of thing, and wanting to give up or wanting to kind of be advised as to like, what do I have to look forward to if I'm 2 months into this and not a whole lot has changed, in his opinion. Where do we go from here? Like, what am I looking for, and stuff like that. So, I tried to reply, kind of, had his first reply to that initial frustration was just like, well, I understand that, but, these things take time. The thing is to kind of just plug into the process, be fully aware of the new habits and lifestyle factors that you're changing and determining, that have more positive outcomes than do negative outcomes, the stuff we're trying to outdo. And, he kind of took that, sat on that, and then replied the following week in his next check-in saying, still feeling the same way as last week, frustrated, not feeling lack of motivation, to which I provided this analogy of, well, it takes 9 months for a human embryo to go from basically an embryo to a baby that is born into this world and is a completely useless human that needs to be cared for quite a long time before it can stand on its own 2 feet and even make it in this world. And here we are in this space where I believe this person's in their late 30s, maybe early 40s, if I remember correctly. And you're expecting 30 days, 60 days, 90 days of changing your habits, not fully change, but changing those habits to outdo 20, 30, 40 years of programming, habits, behaviors, external influences, and things like that. And just how unfair to the process that was. And I used the comparison of starting a new job. Or maybe it's a job that's adjacent to what you do, but essentially it's a new role and you're taking on new things. Mm-hmm. Like when you're in this new job and you make a mistake or something, do you just go, out of frustration? Well, I guess I'm not cut out for this. I should quit and move on to something else. And it's like, no, you would never do that. Take a relationship, for example. a marriage, partnership, whatever, if you mess up or you hurt your partner's feelings, do you, just go, oh, I guess I'm not cut out for this. I messed up. I'm not good at anything. What's the point of this? What do I have to look forward to? And then you just end it. And then you move on to the next devastating partnership that you ruined because you can't persevere through something. And
Right.
so I made those analogies in the sense that your nutrition and your fitness cannot and should not be treated any differently if you have the expectation of succeeding and actually gaining traction and getting somewhere with it. And so this is the setup to why Josh and I find this such a valuable topic to discuss, because as coaches, it's frustrating seeing people want to give up on themselves after 30, 60, 90 days of giving something a try. Maybe they tried everything else under the rainbow, and now they're leveling up and paying for nutrition coaching. And because they're now paying for nutrition coaching, they expect this magical time frame to transform and outdo everything about their entire life where their coach wasn't a part of.
Right.
And so we want to try to help explain and unravel the mystery, which there really is no mystery. You'll find out that it is pretty straightforward, kind of like the analogies with the job and the relationship, like perseverance, continuing to move forward, building a foundation of habits and lifestyle factors and behaviors and things that make you feel good, that then move you in another trajectory towards the person you want to become, and showing up and doing the work regardless of how you feel about it, and how that creates discipline and character traits that are now aligned and conducive to where and who you want to be,
Yeah.
So
man,
that's what we're going to talk about today.
That's what we're going to talk about today. And if you're a listener to the podcast and you've been listening to us for a while, first of all, thanks. That's cool. We love that. Second, there's going to be a lot of overlap here. There's a lot of these things that we talk about, or that we have talked about in the past, that we're going to, go over once more. And like Chris said, it's nothing like super crazy or, sexy or anything like that. These are really basic things, that they're often overlooked because they're none of those things. They're not super cool, or maybe not. Maybe you don't think they're super cool, but people want like it's the shiny object syndrome, right? They want the next big thing. They want the pill that they can take that will make them lose weight. They want the perfect program. They want the perfect diet. They want to be extreme. And none of this is any of that.
Yeah.
None of this is really super extreme. It's not flashy or anything, but you know what? Time and time again, it is proven to work. It has been studied for decades and decades and decades.
Supported by the evidence.
Supported by the evidence, yes. And if you apply these to your everyday life, you will be a healthier and, dare I say, happier person. So
sounds cool to me.
Yeah. Let's dig right into it. We got some notes here. So why don't you start? Why don't you go ahead and start with that diet piece that we have?
Yeah. So this is what WAG do. WAG does. That's what we do as coaches.
WAG do.
WAG do.
WAG do.
We help people understand their nutrition, and it's not subscribing to any way of being with your nutrition, but it's, again, finding an approach that works for you and ultimately for most, if given a try and actually sustained. So the number one thing is, like we know, surprise, healthy eating. And healthy eating being defined as consuming a balanced diet that is rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean protein, which promotes satiety. It reduces total calorie intake because you're fuller for longer so you don't overeat, and provides all the essential nutrients for optimal health.
Yeah.
Nothing sexy about it.
Nope.
It's something your grandma probably would have told you, but notice how in that statement, there was nothing about demonizing foods, saying that any one food is good or bad.
Yeah.
It's just balanced approach to things. And that sounds to me like a lot of freedom.
Yeah. And
right?
I mean,
doesn't seem constrictive or restrictive rather.
No. And to add on to that, the next thing would be portion control. And making sure that even if you have the most balanced diet, even if you're hitting all of those key ingredients, right? The fruits, the vegetables, the lean proteins, all the stuff. It's got to be in a proper portion. You know, you gotta you can overeat on a healthy diet. You can
For
take
sure.
in too many calories on a healthy diet, and I think that's what a lot of people got hung up on with paleo. I know being in the
And
CrossFit
keto.
and keto too. Yeah, yeah. Um, being in the CrossFit community, obviously paleo was the thing for the longest time,
Yeah.
and the principles are still like very sound, but
Mhm.
you can like overeat on avocados and sweet potatoes and chicken and steaks, and of course those are not. I'm not saying that is the paleo diet, but
Right.
those are very healthy, nutrient rich foods, and you can overdo it on those. So portion control, whether that's counting macros or counting calories or however you want to measure it,
Or zone
if you
blocks, whatever.
blocks, if you want to use
Yeah.
your hand, like the piece of protein that's like the size of like your hand, and then like the veggies that's the size of your palm or a closed fist, whatever.
Mhm.
However you do it, you should keep an eye on your portions,
Yep.
and that's going to help you maintain a healthy body weight, healthy energy levels, and so on. So a lot of stuff we're going to talk about here in a minute, but that is, yeah, that's the next step, the
Yes.
next thing that you should be aware of.
The next one would be limiting your processed foods. And notice how I didn't say exclude them, demonize them, anything like that, but just limiting your processed foods. And could be, and the reason being is because processed foods are often high in unhealthy fats, added sugars, refined carbohydrates, and those things tend to contribute to weight gain and hindering weight maintenance. And then that is not in the context of just those foods in general or any one food in that processed food group. It is in the context of your total caloric intake
Mm,
and a matter of quality of your nutrition. And the
yeah.
difference between a whole food, like we mentioned at the top of the show, was that those foods are micronutrient dense, fibrous. They do a better job at filling up your stomach because they take up more physical space, and they send that signal from the stomach to the brain going, you're full, move on with your life.
Right.
Whereas processed foods tend to be the opposite. They are generally nutrient void, fiber void. They can generally contain more calories for a smaller amount of food. And let's not forget, they are engineered to make you want them and be so delicious.
Yeah.
And it's marketing 101, baby. And so you can overdo it on those foods, but those are then generally the foods that get demonized because you overdo it. Nobody ever says, man, I overdid it on chicken and broccoli tonight. You
Yeah.
just don't. It just never
Yep.
happens. So context
Yeah.
and total
Context.
calories,
Yep.
balance.
Boy,
So
I just couldn't stop eating apples today.
yeah,
I couldn't
not,
stop eating
but
rice or
apples have so
yeah,
much sugar, dude. You ate all those sugars.
yeah. Dude, yeah. And you want to
Yeah,
talk about sugars? You want to talk about we want to talk about added sugars, not
right. Added
necessarily
sugars.
natural sugars that are found in foods. So
There you go.
I get that question, and I mean, Chris just said it. Added sugars. Get that question a lot.
Mhm.
I recommend fruit for a good carbohydrate source.
Absolutely.
And people come back and they get worried about the sugar, the fructose in fruit. It's like, well, we're not really super concerned about that. We're more concerned about the added
Hmm.
sugars
Yeah.
and limiting those. So,
Yeah. And then that benefit of the fullness that fruit can provide. Like,
well, yeah, the fiber content, yeah.
yeah, like here's just a quick thought experiment for everyone listening. Imagine entering into a banana eating contest. How far do you think you're going to get? I'd probably stop at 2. I'd be done.
Yeah.
So full. Like nobody sat down and overdid it on bananas and then regretted their life after. Like they're too filling. They're too satisfying. It's not going to happen. So
Yeah,
let that thought linger.
it's so funny. Banana eating contest.
Yeah.
I wonder how many you could do.
Oh, I throw
Maybe
up
that's
so quick.
maybe that's a podcast episode.
Maybe, yeah.
See how many bananas we can eat.
Yeah, 3,
Our
2, 1,
viewers go through the roof.
go.
Oh my god, makes me sick
Yeah.
to think about it. But I'll
Same.
tell you what, apples. I mean,
Oh,
I love apples, man. They're
me
my
too.
favorite
Apples
fruit.
and bananas are a daily staple in my diet, oftentimes paired together with a quick protein shake right after a workout. I'm done. I'm satisfied after. I can go for a walk and then I'll come back home. Then I'm ready for an actual meal.
Yeah,
Perfect.
there you go.
Perfection. Yep.
Next up for the diet is hydration, and we find, and studies also show, that so many people are constantly in a state of dehydration.
Mm.
Doesn't necessarily have to be like we talk obviously like urine color is a good indicator of how hydrated you are. So we're not talking about really, really dark urine, but we're just talking about like a mild dehydration, like
Yeah.
just
It shouldn't look
for.
like Pepsi.
Oh, I hope that we got big problems.
Yeah.
You got more than hydration problems going on if that's the
Yeah.
case. But
Molasses.
but living in that just like constant state of just mild dehydration is just how a lot of people live.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that people are drinking plenty of water. Um, that does help curb cravings, um, excuse me, and boost metabolism. So in a dieting sense, there is some benefits to that, but just in overall health and well-being, um, staying hydrated. I'm sorry, getting dehydrated. The first thing to be affected is your brain, because your brain is
Hmm.
like your brain is mostly water. I forget the percentage. It's like 70% water, maybe
Yeah.
80%. Um, so I'm sure that someone will let me know
Yeah.
exactly
It's
how
about
wrong
roughly
that.
similar to the context of our bodies,
Yeah,
what it's
yeah,
made up
yeah.
of too. Yeah.
It's
It's
high.
very
So
similar.
as soon as dehydration sets in, like what's the first thing to go? And it's mental cognition.
Hmm. Think of your
And from
brain
there,
drying up because it doesn't have the fluids to stay
yeah,
pliable and to send electrical signals throughout. Yeah.
yeah, and that, I mean, you're that just affects every single decision that you make
Hmm.
throughout the day, and that of course includes food.
Yeah.
So you get dehydrated, it's gonna be like I just don't care. I'm just hungry, and you're just kind of foggy and not with it, and it's so much easier to make poor decisions when it
Hmm.
comes to food. And also, maybe you just decide to skip the gym or skip doing something else because you're tired and you're just kind of, again, foggy, and you don't really feel like doing anything. And a majority of those symptoms can be cleared up very quickly with more water
Hmm.
and just getting your body hydrated. So,
Yeah.
um,
If you're in a bad mood, drink some
yeah,
water, like it
yeah,
could be the fix, because think
for
about
real.
how, I mean, we're talking about it in the sense of like nutrition and fitness, but think about what mental cognition and fogginess does to your entire existence every day you're awake
Yeah,
and dealing with what you face at work, your relationship, the gym, your
yeah,
nutrition, the way you perceive and look at things. Like that's the lens
yeah,
in which you're experiencing the world through, and there's a choice there. And I think there's a side aspect to this too, because like people wake up, they feel depleted, they're not drinking enough water, so they think it's an energy issue. So right, and
yeah,
we know that energy is gained from the consumption of food. Calories are energy,
yeah,
and they think to like get that energy from something quick like a caffeine, like coffee, whatever energy drinks you're pounding through the day, just to like push through and get through that fog, when really caffeine is a stimulant. It's not providing any energy whatsoever. It's
mm,
just a stimulant that gives you a sensation of alertness and awareness. And when it's relied on as a crutch in lieu of a healthy diet that provides you energy with hydration to help you digest those foods and,
yeah,
all the health benefits that come with it that we just talked about, then you're kind of chasing this like carrot on a string by just pounding caffeine drinks all day long, and then maybe getting to your meal later on when like maybe just a little bit of food in the morning could have been the difference in how you went about your day and
right,
the actual energy that you want to have. So it's like if you want to feel energized, eat some good food and then see
yeah,
what happens, as opposed to the energy drink, which is really has its time and place, should be used before training, if anything, not just as a crutch to
right,
what's not going on in your life,
yeah.
in your
And I'll,
in
I'll
your habits.
Yeah, and I'll add to the hydration conversation. And there's been more research and studies on this. I feel like more recently, um, I believe Dr. Andy Galpin has done quite a few podcasts and papers on this, as well as his last name is Dinickel Antonio. He's got I
Hmm.
want to say it's James Dinickel Antonio. I'm probably gonna get heat for that too. Um, but the research to promote electrolyte balance.
Mm.
So you can drink a lot of water and just drink water and drink water, and you can actually suffer from dehydration even if you're drinking a lot of water, because you're just wiping out all these vitamins and minerals that your body needs. And it also, if you sweat a lot, like if you're doing hardcore exercise all the time or frequently,
Hmm.
and you're not replenishing via a healthy diet, you can use electrolytes to kind of like help you achieve that balance. And the three electrolytes that you want to make sure that you're getting either in your diet or you're supplementing with is sodium, potassium, and chloride.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of different supplements out there that you can use to do that. But if you have a healthy and well-balanced diet, generally you're going to be fine with those. But if you're on the upper echelon of like exercising frequently and really vigorously, you're sweating a lot, maybe you have a really physical job, replenishing with electrolytes can be a really important piece of the health and wellness puzzle. So before we moved on, I wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
All right. So the next thing that we're going to move into from diet is the next component of things, which can have a profound impact on your existence, which is physical activity.
Yes.
And so we know in most cases that regular exercise or engaging in any regular physical activity, including both cardio and strength training, preferably both, not only burns calories, but it helps you build and maintain and preserve muscle mass. It boosts your metabolism, which contributes to weight loss and preventing weight regain, which is all sounds pretty great to me.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah.
Right.
There is such a wide range of activity levels that you can like engage in. Yeah. Before the podcast, I was talking to Chris about this. Like, there's multiple studies that show that for longevity, and again, we're not talking about perhaps like peak fitness or peak wellness, but just like longevity, you want to live longer and a healthy life, that your body requires a minimum of 60 minutes a week. It's not per day, 60 minutes a week. Okay, so
it's like that's 2 episodes of a Netflix show.
Sure.
Roughly.
However,
let's equate it to something familiar.
Yeah.
Right.
That's one Bell Witch song. How about that?
Even better. Yeah.
Whatever you use for measurement, break it down so you can understand that doing 60 minutes a week of activity is not terribly demanding.
No.
You can do 3 20-minute walks a week in your set. You can do 6 10-minute walks, This, I mean, and then obviously, like I said, from there you can build and you can do more. But if we're talking about just bare bones basics,
entry level,
right? Someone that is just starting to get their health in check and actually care, about themselves and pick up new habits and start maybe a new routine. Baseline 60 minutes a week, and you are so far ahead of a vast majority of the population. So that's
pretty great.
Yeah, it is pretty great. And then obviously what Chris was saying about, more vigorous exercise builds muscle, increases your metabolism, cardiovascular health goes up. All that stuff it just kind of like ramps up, but you got to start somewhere. And if you're starting just getting off the couch, that's a great way to start.
I concur.
Yeah.
Right.
The next one, I mean, this kind of ties right into that.
Yeah.
Finding activities that you enjoy to do. So, Chris, I'm going to use you as an example.
Please do.
You may remember a couple episodes ago, Chris was talking about trail running.
Yeah.
Chris was talking about running, and he was like, I didn't like it. It was really hot. It was really hot and uncomfortable, and he really didn't like it, and he was running like in the city, like on pavement and stuff like that. But as soon as he changed his perspective and decided to go out, and Chris lives in Colorado, as most of you know, he has an amazing and wonderful wide array of different terrains and parks and mountain ranges and things near him. As soon as Chris decided to go out and do some trail running and also just like get out and do some hikes, like all of a sudden, like his cardio became fun and he looked forward to it. So that's exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Modifying it, just, make it stay in your lane, if you will. That's what I did. I had to find my lane and I had to stay in it. I mean, my trail running thing's a whole nother thing, but I think I've given up on that. I just realized I don't like
Well,
running, and I'm okay
yeah,
with that.
and that's
I'll
cool.
get my
And
zone 2 cardio elsewhere. I'll get it
yeah,
from heavy squats.
yeah, we didn't talk much about that
Yeah,
before the podcast started, but I do remember
I like that. Yeah.
specifically talking to Chris about finding what was going to help him like continue to be engaged with doing like cardio work like outside. And
Mhm.
now we're massing and things have changed and he's doing a lot more lifting and things. But back when we first talked about it, that was a major hurdle that he was actively seeking to jump. And if you can find something that you really enjoy, whether it's hiking or just like I said, walking, if you really like running, maybe you like swimming, maybe getting in the pool is cool, maybe you like
Mhm.
that, all that stuff, super beneficial. And if you just start to tap into that,
Yeah,
every single week, then you're going to be light years ahead of everybody else. So,
for sure.
yeah.
And this idea that you have to go to a gym necessarily, like, I mean, we were just talking about like everything that Josh just said, that was all outside and just a matter of me leaving my front door.
Yeah. Yep.
Let alone driving to the mountains 20 minutes away and getting out for trail running, right? So other ways that you can incorporate movement throughout the day is just simply like taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Like if you go to an office building and you're on the second floor, take the stairs, like if there's nothing limiting you in terms of like, obviously any sort of chronic issues, any sort of physical limitations, things like that, like you're cheating yourself by not just taking stairs, right? Little things like parking farther away at the grocery store, maybe even like up that ability and park right next to the cart return. So you're also being a decent human and returning your cart, and then other simple things that are just part of your lifestyle factors and just like everyday stuff, like doing household chores. These are all just simple ways to increase your daily activity and burn more calories. Because the truth of the matter is, me, Josh, most of our clients spend far more time outside of the gym than they could ever possibly realistically spend in the gym. And all that time is time to develop these lifestyle factors where you are just somebody who is just not being as sedentary. And that's such a plethora of opportunity to burn so many more calories. And that maintains your energy balance through the week. You know what I mean? And so you might be able to be the person. So when you're wondering about, like, you see somebody who's like, how can you eat all this stuff and still be the way you are? It's probably because that person's not eating all that stuff and sitting around. That stuff's getting put to work. You know what I mean? And again, that's not an instance of like punishing yourself from eating too much and then having to go work it off. It's just, these are built-in factors. So they don't even have to think about it because they have a higher energy demand because they're moving around more. And that's a pretty great place to be. That's a win-win for me,
sure.
So
Yep. And like, if you want to explore workouts and going to the gym, like, of course you can do that. And there's plenty of different resources. I mean, we have quite a few resources at WAG or at workingagainstgravity.com. You can check it out. Or if you have a coach or someone that you're close to that maybe is fit, then you can obviously ask them for advice, but it all starts. I mean, you can start today. You can, maybe you're doing it right now. Maybe you're walking and you're listening to the podcast, but when you get home from work tonight, then you can literally start, just go out for a 10-minute walk around the neighborhood, come back in, and you are like, again, you're already like pushing the needle in the right direction. So don't think that you have to do something crazy. Go buy a gym membership immediately, right now, to get healthy. Like, you could just go outside and start and get to work.
Yeah. Also, don't forget that nice little path that exists, and it's called the path of least resistance. That's also
good.
A choice.
That's right.
Yep.
100%. Make it easy for yourself, gang.
Agreed. Yeah.
Life's hard enough. Life is hard.
Yep. Don't make it harder.
Than it needs to be.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. So, moving on. Sleep.
Wow.
Boy, is this a big one.
Huge.
Getting enough sleep. All right. So, much like the hydration, many, many, many people, that makes it sound like maybe like 40 or 50 is like many. Like,
I think you need to go higher. Go higher.
Yes. A vast majority of the population of Earth. How about that?
Wow. That sounds
pretty
better.
Good. Yeah. They're underslept, underrested, and the consequences of this are like becoming more and more dire. The more that research comes out, the more that this is studied, the more serious the consequences become. So This is super, super important, gang.
Mhm.
Aiming for 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night helps regulate hormones that control appetite, metabolism, and aid in weight management. And beyond that, it's literally your body's time to like recover and recharge and rebuild. If again,
Mhm.
if you're doing weight training or doing something really strenuous, you're literally rebuilding and getting ready to do it all over again the next day.
Mhm.
It's so
Yeah.
important.
If you literally think about it as that 7 to 8 hour window, maybe more if you're a pro, if you're a sleeping pro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that is probably the only real time of the day that your body gets a moment of zen where it is not impacted by the external stimulus of your existence,
Yeah.
work, life, relationships, your problems, anything, all your thoughts. You get to just disappear from it all, and your body gets to shut down and minimize its processes and
Yeah.
recover. And so think of that like that's that state of like homeostasis that we're trying to reach in all things with sleep, nutrition, fitness, stress management, which we'll talk
Yeah.
about next. And it's like this well-rounded breadth of like taking care of yourself. And because all these factors contribute to your daily experience and have a positive net effect and an accumulative effect too, so like obviously one night of 7 8 hours of sleep isn't gonna outdo a week of maybe sleeping 4 to 5 hours and just pounding through the week on energy drinks, right? Like we want this to be a kind of built-in factor, and so because there is, you got to build it, you got to keep practicing it. And
Yeah.
so I think easily my sleep was one of the most beneficial things to my progress back when I started WAG as a client and today in terms of the long term, which is what we're talking about, because we're talking about how these are short term things, but really
Yeah.
they're developed into long term habits that then get to carry you even farther than you imagined when you originally set out and had a particular goal to reach. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's about crossing that imaginary finish line and moving beyond it, because as Josh and I said before the show, the only finish line is death, So you got to keep showing up and giving your best. Like, what other option do you have,
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. Um, having a good bedtime routine is also super important.
hmm
Um,
Yeah. Like what? What would you recommend for that?
well, like much like Chris said, it's a practice, right?
hmm
Much like you think yoga's a practice, like you have to keep doing it in order to get better at it.
hmm
So it's like figuring out a routine that is going to work for you. Kind of, I mean, there's going to be exceptions. There's going to be times when you travel. There's going to be times where perhaps you have house guests or you're staying at someone else's house, you're with your family, whatever. There's going to be times where it's not going to be ideal. It's not going to be perfect. That said, it's really, really good to get into habits when you are at home and you're just in your everyday routine that you can try to just hold tight to and mimic in any situation. So, what does that look like? That can look like eating dinner at the same time. Your nighttime routine, whatever,
hmm
evening routine, eating dinner at roughly the same time each night, and then having a sequence of events like um, maybe you turn like a couple of the lights down. You turn the kitchen lights off, so all of a sudden the indoor lights are starting to get a little bit dimmer. Maybe you read for a little while. Maybe you watch TV. There's a lot of studies that show that watching TV an hour before bedtime is not good. So if you're going to do that, make sure that that's like a little bit earlier in the night. But have like some sort of activity that kind of helps you unwind. Maybe after that, you brush your teeth or take a shower. And then at that point, you are in bed. And if you fall asleep very quickly, then that can be it for you.
Yeah.
For me personally, I like to read for maybe like 10 to 15 minutes. And that like really like sets me up. And then I'm already in bed and I just go to sleep from there. But regardless of what activities you choose, you should be gradually unwinding and just like kind of like signing out for the day, for
Yeah.
lack of a better term. Uh, uh, and doing that over and over and over again helps your body understand. It's like, okay, when this happens, then we know that this is going to happen next, and when that happens, you know what I mean? Like you get into
Hmm.
the the sequence of events, and I encourage a lot of my clients to really work on this because it's really difficult sometimes. And as a parent, I know that like when me and Jess before we had children, it was it wasn't as different
Mm.
as some might think, but now, like obviously, we have to make sure that the kids are set up for tomorrow, and we get them settled down and get them into bed, and then we go into bed. But that is now part of the routine. It's not
Mm.
like out of the ordinary. That is just worked in, and also for them too, for kids to have a routine. When they're little, their bodies do the same thing. They understand exactly the order of operations and what's coming up next. So
Yep.
so these routines really can help you start to downregulate, kind of sign out for the day, and get your best rest.
Yeah.
What about you? What's your nighttime routine look like?
Very similar. So, through my house, I have Philips Hue smart bulbs. Every one of my light bulbs is that, and I could just be like, "Hey Alexa, dim the lights to 10%, 20%, set a mood, set a scene, all that stuff." So, like later in the night, like I have the habit of just like putting the lights down limb on more of like a kind of like a warmish color,
Yeah,
that's low and dim. And so maybe the brightest thing in the room might be the TV as I'm watching entertainment or doing other things.
yeah,
So, I do that. I generally stick to like a normal dinner time. Sometimes it gets off and I'm eating at 11 p.m. like our last episode we were talking about, but,
yeah,
but that doesn't really affect me. I sleep pretty solidly, but it is because of these routines. And so, dimming the lights, and I do things like stacking habits. So like I'm watching TV, I'm watching a movie, I'm being entertained, whatever, and I'm on the floor doing stretches and mobility,
All
foam
right.
rolling and doing things like that. So it's just like a 2-in-1 rather than just sitting there. And then what I tend to do is then avoid blue light screens within at least an hour of my bedtime, meaning I'm not sitting
Yeah,
in bed with my phone over my face, because circadian rhythms are an important thing. Like humans evolved to the 24-hour sunrise sunset cycle of the Earth's rotation, and that sun reliably coming up and going down
yeah,
every day, right? And so we're in tune to that. And so what happens was you're in front of an LED blue light emitting screen, whether it be your TV, your iPad, your computer, your phone, whatever. That's essentially sending signals to your brain that it's still daylight out, and
yeah,
you should be alert and you should be awake. And so you are essentially interrupting what your body knows to be true, and you're falsifying at what's actually happening, which is it's
yeah.
nighttime. You should be winding down for bed. So there's that. You'll notice my room. I mean, I don't expect anybody to do this, but in my past, I painted my room, my office black. I changed up the lighting. I have blackout curtains. So not only do I have mini blinds that close up, but I have blackout curtains. And then I have a fan on for not only white noise, but like circulation. And so I'm sleeping in a cool, dark cave,
Yeah, I was
much
gonna
like our
say
ancestors
cave.
did, right? Like
Yeah.
literally a cave. And I sleep just so good. I love it, dude. Like, I mean, it's just, you know what I mean? Like, in so far as like my smoke detector up here in the corner, that little green light that just shines all the time,
Yeah.
letting you know it's on. I covered that bad boy up with like a little blackout sticker. And I put those on my electronics in my room. Anything that emits some dumb light just to let you know that it's off, which I
Yeah.
think is so stupid, cover it up. You know what I mean? And so like I've tuned my room to be what it's for, which is sleep mostly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I essentially what I'm doing is I'm preparing for sleep. I'm not treating sleep as an afterthought, like, oh, I'll get to it. When I get to it,
Right.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm excited to get to it. I can't
Yeah.
wait to get to it. And I think that could be the hugest difference in people's sleep, um, patterns, and the holisticness that they kind of provide around their sleep and the value that they get from it. Like, imagine getting a good night's sleep and waking up and not needing an energy drink for once. Like, it'd be
Yeah.
crazy. And I know we're spending a lot of time on one thing, sleep, but I'm sure Josh can attest, as coaching for as long as he has and I have, that I've had so many clients do all the right stuff as far as hydration, nutrition, fitness, and yet they're chasing sleep because they have a high stress job and this or that, or they any number of litany of excuses as to why they can't get sleep at night. But once they started to tune their sleep in, all of a sudden things started moving,
Yeah.
and they're baffled by that,
Yep.
and literally been told, wow, I never thought how magical sleep could be for my results, let alone my existence. And so basically what Josh and I are saying is try it out, guys. Folks, you have nothing, literally nothing to lose.
That's right.
But maybe a little less time being on your devices rather than sleeping, repairing, recovering, waking up ready to kick ass tomorrow. Look at it like that and see what changes.
100%. That's
right.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris kind of touched on this. This is the last one. There's a lot. There's a lot. We're trying to pick the big rocks today. Mm-hmm. The big things that could move you in the right direction. But this is by no means the end all be all list. Mm-hmm. There's many.
So many variables. Yeah.
So many variables. Yes. Everyone's situation is different.
Yep. And you can't expect to master them all in 30, 60, or 90 days.
That's right.
Just think about that to yourself. Think about how absurd that sounds.
Yeah. It takes work.
Yep.
It takes work. The last one, got to find some help. Got to find some healthy coping mechanisms. What are we talking about? Stress management.
Yep.
Got to find ways to alleviate the stress of the day, your work, relationship stuff, just life in general. Mm-hmm. Like we said before, it's hard. Life's hard. So you got to figure out ways to keep calm and make sure that you're not, making impulsive decisions and you're not in the reaction mode all the time. We react so much. I was talking to a client about this actually this week. Impulsive eating, reacting to stress, and how it's so important to respond. The reaction is just like an impulsive. It's just like, we're taking action right now. There's a time for that. There's a time for that. If you're in immediate danger or safety is threatened, take action. Go. Yeah. Figure it out later. Of course.
Yep.
When we're talking about food and we're talking about health, we're talking about stress, like take a second, take a breath, make an objective decision. You have time. I can guarantee it. You have time to do this. It doesn't take very long. But that's the difference between reacting and responding. Okay, you set yourself up mentally for a better outcome if you respond to something rather than react. So by choosing practices for stress management, like meditation, yoga, spending time in nature, just doing like walks outside, free of devices. I think that's important. A lot of these things that you do, meditation, yoga, and if you do go outside for walks, like do it without your phone.
Yeah.
Try to just be present and be there with yourself. That's a lot harder for people than I think a lot of us want to admit. But these things really do pay off and they help you manage your stress. That's the day goes. What do you got on this, Chris?
I think that's also another huge thing too, on the sleep recognition part of it, of like having a number of clients who, again, do everything right, but once they dial in their sleep, same with stress. Once you dial in your stress and you're not like chronically running through the day, and just like finding them, if you're waiting for the zen or the moment of calm in your day, that's a signal that it's not going to come unless you create it. And you have to prioritize your stress management. And so that could be any number of things in terms of what is producing stress in your life. It could be work related, travel, partner, spouse, marriage, whatever. It could be your friends group, people in your, whatever, who are maybe are not conducive to the positive lifestyle habits of yours, whatever, that are maybe, don't fit within that, what you're trying to do. Maybe you need to cut some people out of your life that are causing stress. I recently had to do that. I had to end a 9-year friendship recently because of this person's chaos.
Wow.
And I feel so much better as a result, And so, maybe this will be a topic of another podcast in terms of the support group and tweaking things in your world. But, it was just a big sigh of relief to know that that's never going to be a factor in my world again. And so, but I had to take ownership. And really what stress management is ownership of what is causing you stress and saying, kind of like back to what Brittany said in terms of like, how's that working out for you? Like, how is you constantly being stressed, trying to find the calm in the day and waiting for it rather than creating it? Like, how is that stuff working for you? So like, it begs the question of what are you willing to do to change it? So if your job is stressful, maybe there's some things you can't change about that. But what you can change about it and you do have control over is how you allow it to affect you. And so a lot of that comes with kind of like some of that Stoic values of acceptance, right? And that we are not what happens to us. We are how we choose to respond to what happens to us. And so it does kind of require a bit of that, like maybe eschewing some of that victimhood away, and then accepting personal responsibility for your actions and the things that you should be doing that you're not. And that could be hard, but like, again, you have to like reconcile with yourself as to the things you're saying that you want, and whether or not the things you were doing are in congruence with what you say you want, and that's that expectation versus reality thing that we probably talk about, at least comes up every other podcast, or episode, is that you have to be in alignment with your actual reality, or you got to change your expectations. And so one or the other has to change. And so stress management is a huge thing in terms of like your brain being able to take just a sigh of relief, and then think about how that impacts your existence every single day and the lens in which you see the world through every single day. Like, and when I think about that, it's like, why not? Why wouldn't you want to do that? Why wouldn't you want to experience things? Like, I know there's some high level achievers that kind of like get off on like, always kind of being on the run and chasing things. But like, again, begs the question, how's that working out for you? And what are you willing to change about it? And then seek to explore what there is to be discovered, and wrap it into your repertoire, add some things in. And again, you're not going to become a Stoic master overnight. It takes time. It takes practice. You have to commit to the process of changing this shit up here, because that's it. This guy up here, this thing up here is your determining factor. Yeah, literally in your existence. And the sooner you accept that, wow, what a lot of freedom and flexibility it really opens up for you. And then I won't say the word, but you become unmessable with, if you will. And you are master of your domain, and very little can affect you. And you're just deflecting stuff like, psh, psh, nope, not worth my time. Boom, boom. And you're just right here, right where you need to be. That's right. In that straight line, So do that and then see what happens.
Everyone's got their own method. Gotta find yours. Gotta find yours. Very important. Very important. So, well, that's a great way to close it, Chris.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the other things that, worth mentioning, and which we'll close out the podcast with, is if you need help with this stuff, there are professionals that provide the guidance, like myself, like Josh, the rest of the amazing coaches on the WAG staff. And so if that's something that you feel that you could benefit from to bring things to the next level, to have that accountability buddy in this meeting,
accountability buddy?
Yeah, accountability buddy.
Wow.
And taking these things on head on with somebody else and not on your own, and just putting it in the hands of somebody else to decide. And you're just willing to show up and say, I will do what you tell me to do to the best of my ability. Go to workingagainstgravity.com/join, type in the code INSIDEWAG. We'll gladly give you $50 off your first month of coaching on either of our programs, Essential or Nutrition Coaching Plus. That includes one video chat per month with your coach and a meal plan. And just take advantage of it and see what's possible. You don't have to wait until the new year to get started either. Josh and I are recording today on December 13th. I know I personally, when I started my WAG journey, I decided to start in November because I didn't want this to be another resolution that I started and stopped and came back full year round. So like maybe commit to just getting things moving before the New Year's. And that way you go into the new year saying, I've already started, baby. Here we go. Let's do this. That's what I got to look forward to, and you're already a month ahead of everyone else. Right.
For sure.
And so please do that. If there's anything that we can help you with, obviously leave us a comment, leave us a suggestion. And if you have questions about the WAG program or what we do or anything else that we have not covered here, shoot an email to info@workingagainstgravity.com and we'll be happy to answer your questions. And obviously check out the website for another wealth of information, guides, support, even if you're not ready to take that leap. So,
great.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Excellent. Well, that was great, Josh. That was a fun one today.
Hope y'all enjoyed it too. And we'll be back soon with another episode. So we'll see you guys next time.